Hello everyone, I'm Will. I'm a Norse pagan from central Pennsylvania. For those that have been following me, I took a little bit of a break recently. I've been extremely busy with a lot of things that are going on. I do independent reporting, and I've been going to a lot of the protests and rallies, including the one the 6th of January here, and that's just been a lot of excitement and craziness. So I've been editing videos for that, and I've been quite swamped as of late, but I'm going to try to continue and pick up where I left off of with these videos that I've been putting out with Wednesdays readings of Old Norse texts and my Sunday hike days. So stay tuned for more of that. Without further ado, though, I'm going to go ahead and get back into the reading of Jackson Crawford's The Wanderer's Hávamál. We'll be continuing where we left off last. It is time to speak on the wise men's chair at Urd's well. I saw and was silent. I saw and I thought. I listened to men's speech. I heard about runes. They were not silent with counsel at Odin's hall. At Odin's hall, I heard them say so. I counsel you, Lord Fafnir, if you'll take my advice, you'll profit if you learn from it. It'll do you good if you remember it. Do not rise at night, unless you're spying on your enemies, or seeking a place to relieve yourself. I counsel you, Lord Fafnir, if you take my advice, you'll profit from it. It'll do you good if you remember it. Do not sleep in the arms of a sorceress, or else she will lock your limbs. She will enchant you so that you won't care for advice nor a powerful man's words. If you will want neither food nor the pleasure of friends' company, and you will sleep full of sorrow. I counsel you, Lord Fafnir, if you'll take my advice, you'll profit from it if you learn it. It'll do you good if you remember it. Never seduce another man's woman with whispers in her ear. I counsel you, Lord Fafnir, if you take my advice, you'll profit if you learn it. It'll do you good if you remember it. If you spend time wandering by land or sea, bring plentiful provisions. I counsel you, Lord Fafnir, if you take my advice, you'll profit if you learn from it. It'll do you good if you remember it. Never let a bad man know your misfortune, for you will never profit at all from your goodwill towards a bad man. I saw a bad woman's words bite a man in the neck. A lying tongue was his death, and not even with good cause. I counsel you, Lord Fafnir, if you take my advice, you'll profit if you learn it. It'll do you good if you remember it. If you have a friend and you trust him, go and visit him often. Weeds and high grass will grow on a path that nobody travels. I counsel you, Lord Fafnir, if you'll take my advice, you'll profit if you learn from it. It'll do you good if you remember it. Get a good man to join you in joyful talk, and learn a healing spell while you live. I counsel you, Lord Fafnir, if you'll take my advice, you'll profit if you learn from it. It'll do you good if you remember it. Never be the first to break friendship with your friend. Sadness will eat up your heart if you have no one you can talk to. I counsel you, Lord Fafnir, if you'll take my advice, you'll profit if you learn it. It'll do you good if you remember it. You should never exchange words with somebody who won't see reason. You will never get a reward for dealing with a bad man, but a good man will make you well regarded with his praise. Men become friends when they can share their minds with one another. Anything is better than the company of liars. A real friend will disagree with you openly. I counsel you, Lord Fafnir, if you'll take my advice, you'll profit if you learn it. It'll do you good if you remember it. Don't speak even 3 words with a man worse than you. Often the better man will lose when a worse man fights him. I counsel you, Lord Fafnir, if you'll take my advice, you'll profit if you learn it. It'll do you good if you remember it. Don't make shoes and don't make weapons except for yourself. If there's a flaw in the shoe, or the spear shaft is crooked, your name will be cursed. I counsel you, Lord Fafnir, if you'll take my advice, you'll profit from it if you learn it. It'll do you good if you remember it. When you recognize evil, call it evil, and give your enemies no peace. I counsel you, Lord Fafnir, if you can take my advice, you'll profit if you learn it. It'll do you good if you remember it. Never be glad to hear bad news. but be cheerful about good news. I counsel you, Lord Fafnir, if you'll take my advice, you'll profit if you learn it. It'll do you good if you remember it. You should never look up when you're in a fight. Men who do so may go mad with panic. Beware, or someone may curse you. You should never look up when you're in a fight. Those inside the house rarely know anything about the stranger who knocks at their door. But there is no man so good that he has no flaw. Not a man so bad, he's good for nothing. I counsel you, Lord Fafnir, if you'll take my advice, you'll profit if you learn it. It'll do you good if you remember it. Never laugh at an old man. There is often wisdom in what old men say. Wise words will often come from a gray-bearded mouth, from the one who hangs with dried skins, who sings with dried skins, who wades with despicable men. I counsel you, Lord Fafnir, if you'll take my advice, you'll profit if you learn it. It'll do you good if you remember it. Never spite a guest, nor spit at his entrance. Treat a poor wanderer well. It's a strong door that ought to open, to let everyone in. Give a visitor something, or he will call every curse down on your limbs. I counsel you, Lord Fafnir, if you'll take my advice, you'll profit if you learn it. It'll do you good if you remember it. When you drink beer, choose the might of the earth, for the earth is good against beer, and fire against sickness, oak against irritable bowel, wheat against magic, an elder tree against family quarrels, maggots against venomous bites, runes against evil, ground against water. Swear your hate beneath the moon. I know that I hung on the wind-battered tree 9 long nights, pierced by a spear and given to Odin, myself to myself on that tree. When roots grow in a place no one has ever seen. Whose roots grew in a place no one has ever seen. No one gave me food, no one gave me drink. At the end I peered down. I took the runes, screaming I took them, and then I fell. I learned 9 spells from the infamous son of Bolthor, the father of Besla, and I won a drink of that precious mead, poured from Othrerir. I began to be fruitful, I became wise, I grew and I thrived. One word chased another word, flowing from my mouth. One deed chased another deed, flowing from my hands. You will find runes, runic letters to read, very great runes, very powerful runes, which Odin painted. And which the holy gods made, and which Odin carved. Odin carved for the gods, and Dain for the elves, Dvalin for the dwarves, and Osvid for the giants. I carved some myself. Do you know how to write them? Do you know how to read them? Do you know how to paint them? Do you know how to test them? Do you know how to ask them? Do you know how to bless them? Do you know how to send them? Do you know how to offer them? It is better not to pray at all than to pray for too much. Nothing will be given that you won't repay. It is better to sacrifice nothing than to offer nothing. Odin carved this before the birth of humankind, when he rose up and returned again. I know magic spells that no woman knows, and no man either. The first is called help, and it will help you in lawsuits and sadness and all kinds of worries. I know a second spell which men need if they want to heal others. I know a third spell. If I have great need to thwart my enemies, I dull the edges of their weapons, and none of their blades will bite. I know a fourth spell. If chains and locks are placed upon my limbs, I can cast this spell so that I can escape. The chains burst from my hands, the locks burst from my feet. I know a fifth spell. If I see a spear cast into a crowd of battling foes, it cannot fly so fast that I can't stop its flight as long as I can see it. I know a sixth spell. If a man carves a curse against me in the roots of a gnarled tree, I call this spell down upon that man, and his curse harms him instead of me. I know a seventh spell. If I see a great flame consuming a hall full of people, it cannot burn so bright that I cannot save those inside. I know how to cast this spell. I know an eighth spell. It would be useful for anyone to learn it. When hate arises between any two people, I can cool their tempers. I know a ninth spell. If the need arises for me to save a ship upon the sea, I can calm the wind upon the waves and soothe the sea to sleep. I know a 10th spell. If I see witches at play in the air, I can cast this spell so that they get lost, so they can't find their skins, so they can't find their minds. I know an 11th spell. If I lead old friends into a battle, I enchant their shields so that they will have the victory. They will go to battle unharmed, and return from battle unharmed. They will come home without harm. I know a 12th spell. If I see hanging from a tree a dead man's corpse, I carve some runes and paint them. And then that corpse will walk and speak with me. I know a 13th spell. If I throw water upon a young man, he will never be killed. Even if he goes into battle, that man will not die from violence. I know a 14th spell. It allows me to count all the gods for men. I know the names of all the gods and elves, and few who are fools can say that. I know a 15th spell. The dwarf, Theodoraria. I know a 15th spell. The dwarf, Theodoraria, cast it before Delling's doors. He conjured power for the gods, courage for the elves, and knowledge for Odin. I know a 16th spell. If I want to win over a coming woman and have her all to myself, I can change the mind of that lovely armed beauty and win her favor for myself. I know a 17th spell. To prevent a beautiful woman from shunning me, you'll go without these spells, Lodfafnir, for a long time. But they'd profit you if you learn them. They'd do you good if you remembered them. They'd suit your needs if you could use them. I know an 18th spell, which I will never teach to a girl or a woman unless, maybe, to the one I embrace in sleep, or my sister. It is much better that one alone should know this, which is the last of the spells. Now the words of the One-Eye are heard in Odin's hall, for the benefit of humans, for the harm of giants, health to you who speak them, health to you who know them, profit to you who learn them, health to you who hear them. I believe that completes The Wanderer's Hávamál. I may read yet the commentary in a later video, but that's the majority of The Wanderer's Hávamál, as far as I'm aware. But thank you all for watching. If you'll stay tuned for a little bit longer here yet, I'll do a quick sacrifice to Odin and call it a day for this video. Thank you all for watching. Odin, Woden, Odin, I beckon thee, I call to thee, I ask you into my home. 9 candles I have lit for thee, like the 9 nights you hung upon Yggdrasil. Hail Odin, hail to thee. I welcome you as a guest, and I bring gift, asking that you accept the mead and words I speak. Thank you, Odin, for that which you give to humanity, wisdom, knowledge, the runes, and all else. Hail to thee, Wanderer, Rune Weaver. Hail, Odin. Praise to thee. Please accept this mead as gift. Hail, Odin. Hail to thee, Odin. May you go well on your travels, and may you watch over me as I go upon mine. Thank you all for watching. Take care, and until next time.